Discover the incredible journey, from mockery to life-saving bond in just 30 days. 16-year-old Jake Anderson sat at the back of the classroom, his heart sinking as the whispers started again. "Look at him, the wannabe paramedic," someone sneered. They laughed, and Jake's shoulders slumped even further. He was used to it. Coming from a small town where everyone seemed to know everything about everyone else, being the target of ridicule for wanting to help others stung like nothing else. His dreams felt like distant stars that were too far to reach. But even amidst the daily torment, Jake kept his head down and worked hard, aspiring to become a paramedic. Life at home wasn't much better. His single mom busted her back to make ends meet, which left Jake feeling even more isolated. Meals were often just enough to fill their empty stomachs, and the warmth of hope felt extinguished. But there was one saving grace: Mr. Thompson, his elderly neighbor. Every afternoon, Jake would find solace on the creaky porch of Mr. Thompson's house. The retired veteran always greeted him with a warm smile and a twinkle in his eye, ready to share stories of bravery, resilience, and community. "You see, Jake," he would say, "real strength comes from empathy. You've got that in spades." Those words washed over Jake like sunlight breaking through clouds. In his heart, he clung to the hope they offered. Then came the fateful day that changed everything. One sunny afternoon, as Jake mowed the lawn, he heard a screech and a terrible crash. Heart pounding, he dashed down the street. It was chaos. 2 cars had collided, and Jake's stomach dropped as he spotted Mr. Thompson, lying on the pavement, blood seeping from his forehead. All the first aid lessons he devoured rushed through his mind, intensifying his panic. Jake felt paralyzed, but the fear melted into determination. "I can't lose him," he thought, racing over. He applied pressure to the wound, desperately trying to remember everything he practiced. But when he miscalculated the angle of pressure, the blood kept seeping, and in a moment of dread, Jake felt like he had failed. A hot mix of guilt and fear froze his chest. However, as if in defiance of his mistake, the townsfolk began to gather, each of them rallying around. Instead of turning on him, they united. Their fierce whispers of mockery transformed into words of support. "Let us get him help," cried a neighbor. They pulled together, forming a human chain of strength, urging Jake forward. Mr. Thompson, despite his injury, beamed at Jake with pride, his spirit unbroken. As the days passed, the town's perception of Jake shifted. They began to recognize the depth behind his aspiration. Respect replaced ridicule, and their attitude bloomed like flowers in spring. They planned a parade in his honor, a celebration of courage and redemption. But just as hope flourished, shadows closed in. Jake realized there were secrets buried deep within their small town's past, shadows darker than his own struggles. Just as he thought he was turning a corner, he stood on the edge of another unknown. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the parade coming, Jake felt a knot of anxiety. Could he mend the bond with his mother, facing her own demons? And would the town finally unite against the shadows that had haunted them for so long? He was ready to find out, standing tall in the heart of a community that, despite its flaws, had the power to heal. The question hung in the warm air: in the face of adversity, could they emerge stronger together? The night before the parade arrived, a palpable excitement shimmered through the small town. Jake had spent every waking hour planning with his friends, each detail of the parade becoming a celebration of triumph and transformation. Yet, beneath the festive glow, anxiety gnawed at him. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at a half-eaten slice of bread, his mind drifting to his mother. Would she show up? Or would old habits keep her locked in her own shadows? Jake pushed his chair back and wandered outside, the cool breeze ruffling his hair. It felt good to breathe deeply, to clear his mind. As he stepped onto the porch, he caught sight of Mr. Thompson's empty chair. It felt strange to imagine the parade without him, but he could almost hear the old man's voice echoing encouragement, reminding him of what they had talked about, the strength that comes from caring for one another. As the sun rose, the town came alive. Colorful banners waved in the gentle breeze, and laughter mingled in the air. Jake meticulously checked the setup, his heart racing with every familiar face that passed by. They waved, smiled, and shared whispered conversations about him. Once an outsider, he felt the warmth of acceptance wrap around him like a hug. Amidst the bustle, he suddenly noticed someone standing off to the side, watching. It was Jessica, a girl from school who had often joined in on the laughter at his expense. Jake's stomach twisted. She caught his gaze and slowly approached. "Hey, Jake," she began, her voice uncertain. I never really understood your dream. I'm really sorry for everything. You know, the teasing." Jake could feel an entire ocean of emotions swirling inside him. Her admission could have easily slipped into bitterness or anger, but instead, he felt a flicker of compassion, the kind he wished for himself and others. "It's okay," he replied, surprised at his own steadiness. "I think we've all got our reasons for how we act." The sincerity in her eyes was matched by a newfound respect as the two shared a moment of understanding. Unexpectedly, this small conversation filled a gap in both their lives, a quiet acknowledgement of the struggles they each faced within. As the parade began, ringing cheers surged through the streets. Jake found himself standing on a makeshift float, a vibrant collection of smiles and stories. He could see his mother in the crowd, a hesitant yet hopeful look crossing her face. It became clear she had fought past her own demons. She was there, something he hadn't dared to hope for. He felt the thunderous pulse of the crowd, the rhythm of drumming hearts synchronizing with his own. Jake spoke into the microphone, voice trembling yet fierce. "Thank you for believing in me, for seeing who I am and not just what I want to be. This isn't just my journey, it's ours." The cheers grew louder, a wave of warmth washing over him. But as he gazed into the faces of the crowd, he felt an unsettling shift in the atmosphere. The shadows he had sensed before crept back in, looming over the very memories they sought to celebrate. A flicker of movement caught his eye near the edge of the parade, and his heart dropped as he spotted figures congregating. What were they doing? A cold knot twisted in his stomach as murmurings floated to his ears. Whispers of secrets long hidden, old disputes rearing their ugly heads. Just beyond the jubilance of the parade, he felt an urgent calling that would send him into an even deeper unraveling of the truth. What secrets would surface on this day meant for healing? Jake braced himself, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, knowing that in this moment of unity, he would either have to face the shadows alone or embrace the strength of those who had stood by him, a choice that would determine the future of his small town. Jake stood on that float, adrenaline coursing through him, feeling every heartbeat reverberate with something deeper than the celebration. He looked out at the crowd again, soaking in the joy, the laughter. Yet a low murmur at the edge of the parade tugged at him like a forgotten anchor. Shadows cast over the festivities, pulling him back to fears he thought he had put to rest. The cheer from the crowd faded into a distant hum as he took a step closer to the edge of the float. He could see faces turned away, lots of hushed whispers. People looked agitated, their smiles replaced with hushed urgency. His mother was still in view, but her smile had slipped, replaced by a concerned frown. "Hey, what is going on over there?" Jake called out to some childhood friends, waving them over. It was Mark and Lily, the ones he'd grown up with, who had stood by him through thick and thin. They looked at each other, hesitant. "Jake, you should probably stay up here," Mark said, his voice barely rising above the cheering crowd. It's not good." "What do you mean?" Jake felt a knot of panic rising in his throat. The sense that something big was off wore heavy on his heart. It's the Johnsons. They're arguing. Lily pointed toward a group forming, anger and frustration radiating from them. Jake squinted. He recognized old Mr. Johnson's voice soaring above the rest, his face contorted in rage. I have a right to know what you're hiding from me. Mr. Johnson's voice echoed through the air, cutting through the merry sounds of the parade like a knife. What is he talking about? Jake muttered to himself, panic twisting into confusion. Mark stepped closer. You know there've always been misunderstandings between the Johnsons and the Thompsons over things. But it seems it's escalated. Something about Dad's last message to Mr. Thompson before he passed. Just then, a woman's voice rang out, pleading yet firm. This isn't the time or place. Can we talk about this later? But the tension was too high. Jake felt himself being pulled closer to the growing confrontation. A stirring familiar dread settled low in his stomach. He climbed down from the float, ignoring Mark's frantic pleas to stay put. Jake moved through the throng of people, his breath hitching as he squeezed between the gathered onlookers, drawn to the escalating confrontation. The Johnsons had always kept to themselves since Mr. Thompson's passing, hiding behind the veil of their grievances while the community tried to bridge the gap. What was really going on beneath that surface? He reached the edge of the gathering, his heart pounding in his chest, the noise of the crowd fading away. In that moment, it was just Jake, the tension, and the truth that threatened to unfold. I'm not hiding anything. Jake heard Mr. Johnson shout. There was a determination in his voice, but also fear. Old grievances were bubbling up, ready to explode. Jake took a shaky breath. Would the day that was meant to celebrate their town's unity tear them apart instead? What did my dad mean? Jake shouted, the question bursting out of him. The crowd quieted, all eyes focused on him, waiting for answers. A mix of surprise and concern washed over faces he knew well. His heart raced, filled with dread and a flicker of courage. The echoes of hurt and misunderstanding threatened to drown him, but he couldn't turn away now. This was where it all began, where he could uncover the truth and perhaps heal the rifts that had grown among them. The weight of the moment pressed heavily on Jake's shoulders. Would he be strong enough to face what lay ahead? And what secrets would emerge from the shadows that had haunted their town for so long? As silence enveloped the scene, all eyes on him, Jake braced himself. The truth was within reach, but at what cost? The moment Jake's words hung in the air, the world around him seemed to pause. The sunlight was still bright, but shadows danced wildly among the crowd. He felt the weight of every gaze, the questions bouncing around like pinballs. What did your dad mean? Echoed in his ears, beating with the pulse of fear drowning out the festive music. Mr. Johnson's face contorted further, surprise mixing with resentment. He paused, searching for the right words, perhaps even the courage to address the truth. This isn't just about your father, Jake. He finally barked, voice strained. It's about the secrets that linger between our family's secrets that have torn us apart for years. Jake's heart raced. Everyone was listening. The air grew thicker, each breath more difficult as he stepped closer, craving answers yet dreading the fallout. What kind of secrets? He demanded, bracing himself for whatever might come next. His voice was steadier now, fueled by an urgency that thrummed through him. Lily stepped beside him, her eyes wide with worry, but she squeezed his arm as if to ground him. Jake, maybe we should, but he couldn't back down now. No. If something's been hidden, we deserve to know. The crowd shifted, uncertainty mingling with outrage. Some nodded in agreement, the tension palpable, while others looked anxious, sensing paths unrevealed. Conversations erupted sporadically, fragments of words passing through like whispers caught in a breeze. I'll explain, shouted Mrs. Johnson, stepping forward. Her voice cut through the chaos, breaking the heavy silence but wresting back some control. She seemed worn, tears welling in her eyes that glittered like glass. When your father was dying, he told Charles he asked him to keep a message. A promise. The people leaned in, collective breath held, anticipating every word. Jake's stomach twisted. A promise? To do what? To take care of things that were left unsaid, things that might hurt more if spoken aloud. Mr. Johnson's voice rang out, angry yet vulnerable. He thought it would protect the families, but it's only made everything worse. Jake's brain swirled, trying to piece together the fragments of history tumbling into view like a fog lifting. What does this have to do with me? He breathed, memories of his father's warmth and laughter flickering through his mind. His father was a good man, he wouldn't have wanted any of this. You have answers, Jake, Mrs. Johnson insisted. You are part of this too. You might even hold the key. A gasp rippled through the crowd, confusion mixed with frustration. Why me? He whispered, feeling the weight of expectation anchor him in place. He could see his mother's face, a mix of fear, hope, and that same protective concern that had shadowed her every move since his father had passed. Because you are the next in line, the bridge between us, Mr. Johnson said. The sincerity of his voice made Jake's heartbeat quicken. Was it possible he was right? What bridge could there even be when mistrust had laid the foundation? As shock settled in, another wave of nausea hit Jake. He had come seeking a celebration, expecting laughter and recognition, but was instead deep in the web of unspoken words. The truth felt so close, yet so distant, a daunting task lay ahead. Can we fix this? Can we heal? Jake asked, the plea rising in his throat, wanting so desperately to believe that there was still a way to mend the rift. A hush fell over the crowd, and he felt the eyes of old friends, neighbors, and family weigh heavily on him. Jake gulped hard, knowing this wasn't just about him. Tell me what to do. His statement hung in the air, heavy with possibility. But as tension shimmered like heat waves over the crowd, he started to wonder, was he ready to uncover the truth? What if the answers lay somewhere he couldn't expect? And that's when he saw the flicker of something shifting at the edge of the crowd. A figure, cloaked in shadows, watching intently. Who were they, and what did they know? As his heart raced anew, a sensation shimmered in Jake's chest. Tension crackled in the air, ready to ignite. Would he be able to seize this moment and turn towards a path leading to resolution, or would the truth prove too explosive to handle? Jake's eyes locked onto the shadowy figure. The moment was electric, and for a heartbeat, the crowd faded into the background. He needed answers. Without thinking, he stepped forward, his muscles tensed and ready to confront whoever had appeared so mysteriously. Lily's hand gripped his arm tighter. Jake, wait. She gasped, but he shook her off, feeling a surge of determination coursing through him. The figure shifted, stepping out from behind the veil of onlookers. A girl, perhaps a year older than Jake, emerged into the light. Her dark hair framed a face that bore the weight of unseen burdens. As she stepped closer, the crowd buzzed with a mix of curiosity and caution. I'm sorry, she said, voice steady but soft. I didn't mean to intrude. You weren't intruding, Jake replied, voice steady despite the chaos swirling around him. Who are you? I'm Ava, she said, taking a breath. I know about the secrets. The hush turned to whispers again. Some in the crowd exchanged looks, connecting the dots with expressions of disbelief and curiosity. Jake's heart thumped loudly in his chest. Her presence felt significant, as if she carried a missing piece of a puzzle he had never known he was trying to solve. Secrets? What do you know? He pressed, eyes narrowed, his full focus on her. I can't say everything, Ava began hesitantly. But I heard things. Conversations, I overheard them from people in our families. Jake's pulse quickened. What did you hear? They talked about a betrayal about a time long ago, something that changed everything, she continued, looking around, wary of the crowd's attentiveness. All this anger, even among friends, it's rooted in lies, things left unspoken. His pulse raced. Memories of his father's face flashed in his mind, of quiet moments they'd shared. This isn't just about our families, he said, almost to himself. It's about the past, it's about justice, isn't it? Healing? Yes, Ava said, something sad yet hopeful in her eyes. But it hurts. It always has, and it always will unless we face it together. You are a part of this. It's why they are waiting for you to lead. The crowd shifted, the tension palpable. Jake felt the weight of commitment settling on his shoulders. How can we do this? He asked, his voice a low whisper, yet filled with determination. Ava stepped closer, her tone turning urgent. We start by sharing the truth. But there's one more thing, there is a piece of the past that someone doesn't want to resurface, and it could change everything. Who? Jake demanded, his resolve hardening. What happens if we don't? Then the cycle continues, she said, her eyes glistening with an emotion he couldn't quite decipher. And people will continue to get hurt. His heart sank. Jake glanced back at his mother, eyes wide with anxiety. Would she understand? Would she support him diving into the depths of this family history? A ripple of uncertainty bounced off the crowd, their faces a mix of fear and anticipation. Are you ready for this? She asked, her voice low but steady. Jake inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of his choice. Ready or not, I need to know. He turned back to the crowd, locking eyes with Mr. Johnson. Then we face it together. Whatever this is, we bring it into the light. A tense silence enveloped them. Then, without warning, a voice called from the back of the crowd, a shrill laugh that pierced through the air. Does anyone even care about the truth anymore? Facing the sound felt like opening a door that had cracked just a bit too far. Jake turned toward the voice, every muscle tense. Who had just thrown a dark cloud over what felt like a chance for healing. As Jake tried to spot the source of the taunt, anxiety flickered in his chest. The path ahead was becoming increasingly treacherous, yet he felt lost in this maze of loyalties, hidden truths, and painful history. The path stretched before him, daunting yet compelling. And he had no choice now, every moment counted. Would he unravel the web of secrets, or risk everything for answers that might plunge them deeper into despair? Jake squinted through the dim light, straining to find the owner of the cutting voice. The crowd shifted, whispering and glancing furtively at one another. He could almost feel their unease rippling through the air, thickening it with tension. Someone chuckled again, a sound dripping with cynicism that cut through their shared silence. Who said that? Jake called, trying to inject confidence into his voice. It came out more like a plea. Who cares? The voice rang out again, and Jake spotted a boy leaning against a tree, arms crossed. With a smirk plastered across his face, it was clear he wanted to provoke. Isn't the truth just a fancy word for your bias? He continued, his tone mocking. He sneered, glancing at Ava with a dismissive wave. You seriously think digging up old graves is going to fix things? A chill ran through Jake as he recognized the boy Ethan, a group member they had always avoided. He had a reputation for stirring the pot and turning even the smallest disputes into dramatic confrontations. Ethan, that's enough. Lily piped up from beside Jake, her voice fierce. You don't understand what's at stake here. Oh, but I do. He pushed himself off the tree, stepping forward with brimming bravado. The crowd quieted but remained on edge, tension building like a tightly wound spring. You're all chasing ghosts, thinking you can rewrite history. How naive. Jake felt anger rise within him, hot and insistent. You don't get to decide what we do, Ethan. This isn't just about the past, it's about our future. Ethan halted, a fleeting look of surprise flitting across his face. And what will this grand revelation give you, huh? Closure? Respect? Do you think it'll erase the mistakes of our folks? It's about understanding. Jake shot back, his heart pounding. If we can't confront these past hurts, we'll never heal. Ava stepped closer, her voice steady. We're trying to shed light on why these wounds still hurt, why our community feels so fractured. We don't want to forget, we want to grow. Jake caught flickers of interest among the crowd. He could see divided faces, some eager to rally behind him, while others remained skeptical, wrapped in Ethan's negativity. Are you really willing to dive into this mess? Ethan interjected, a wicked grin plastered on his face. What if, in the end, it blows up in your face? The weight of the question hovered, and Jake felt a swell of uncertainty, but determination pushed through. If we don't try, then we're losing to fear. I refuse to let fear take the lead anymore. Ethan laughed again, but this time it lacked gusto. Good luck with that. I'll be watching. He stepped back, his gaze openly mocking. Silence lingered, and abruptly, the crowd shifted. Jake could sense their collective breath catching, the moment teetering on the edge of something immense. He looked at Ava, who nodded slightly, an affirmation that the truth they sought was worth the struggle. All right, listen up. Jake called, his voice booming over the crowd. We can't let fear dictate us. If there are secrets that can heal us, then we owe it to ourselves to pursue them. Together. Some voices murmured agreement, others remained stilled by disbelief. Jake's heart soared, a flicker of hope ignited in him. What if they could really illuminate the darkness that loomed over them? But just as momentum began to build, another voice rose from the back, firm and unyielding. If you dig into our past, be prepared for what you might find. Some truths are better left buried. The crowd turned, and Jake felt his stomach drop. This was someone else wanting to push fear back into the forefront, to shatter the fragile resolve he had just built. Who are you? Jake shouted, refusing to back down. The figure stepped into the light, and Jake's heart raced. It was someone he never expected to see. Would this person stand as a barrier to his quest for clarity or become an unexpected ally? As the face slowly came into focus, Jake realized this journey was spiraling into a deeper challenge than he had ever anticipated. Would he have the strength to face it all? And, more importantly, could he rally his friends and his community when shadows loomed larger than ever? Jake's heart sank as he recognized the face stepping out from the shadows. It was his old friend Mia, a girl whose laughter had once filled hallways and hearts. The girl they all remembered, but who seemed to have faded from their lives. Mia, what are you doing here? Jake managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. A mix of disbelief and confusion swirled in him as the crowd hushed, eyes shifting between the two. Didn't he think I'd come back, did you? She replied, her expression hard to read. There was anger, disappointment, but also an undeniable trace of hurt beneath the surface. You're all so wrapped up in your little quest for truth. Growing through the past, you said? Exactly. Jake interjected, hoping to reconnect with her. We need to understand what happened to us. Where we went wrong. Mia laughed, but it had an edge, sharp and bitter. And what makes you think the truth won't just tear us apart even more? Some things, some people are better left forgotten. Jake felt emotions thrumming through him: frustration, guilt, nostalgia. He stepped closer, the space between them pulsating with unspoken words. We can't keep living like this, Mia. You know that better than anyone. But it's not always about digging up old wounds. Mia's voice cracked with passion. Some of us have moved on. If you start asking questions, you might not like the answers. It could destroy everything. You'll be haunted by what's uncovered. Jake could see it, the flicker of fear in her eyes. It was the same fear that had been gripping him since this all began. Maybe he was naive to think they could face this together. Mia, we can handle it. We're stronger than you think. Our community is counting on us. The crowd around them listened intently, murmurs filling the silence. Jake's plea resonated with some, but there were those influenced by doubt. He could feel Ethan's mocking presence weighing heavily, still lingering like a shadow. Mia's face softened slightly, the hardness unearthing a vulnerability he hadn't seen in years. What do you expect to find, Jake? Closure? Honor? What if you only find pain? What if the truth breaks us apart rather than bringing us together? Jake paused, thinking about all the times he and Mia had navigated their past together, the laughter that had once connected them but had frayed over time. Maybe it already has, he admitted quietly. But we won't know unless we try. We owe it to ourselves, to everyone who is no longer here to try. Mia contemplated his words, searching his eyes as if she could read his soul. For a brief moment, hope twinkled between them, a chance at something more than just friendship, a chance to heal what had once brought them joy. All right, she said slowly, the weight of her decision heavy in the air. But you have to promise me you'll be ready for whatever we might dig up. We can't go back. We can only move forward. I promise, Jake replied, feeling a surge of determination. Together, we can face it all. And if we fall, we'll fall together. As they locked eyes, he caught glimpses of a tentative alliance forming not only against the past but against those who would keep them locked in fear. The crowd seemed to breathe in unison, anticipation crackling like electricity. But just then, a loud crack of thunder echoed overhead, startling everyone. A storm was rolling in, dark clouds gathering as if nature itself sensed the turmoil ahead. The growing winds whispered warnings, mixed with the upheaval of emotions swirling in Jake's mind. Could their fragile bond survive the tempest? And would the truths they unearthed propel them forward or bury them in deeper chaos? Jake felt the clouds above mirror the uncertainty in his heart. The time for light had come, but the storm was only beginning. The wind howled, tugging at the crowd, as if urging them to flee from the storm brewing both outside and within. Jake held his breath, feeling the tension that wrapped around him and Mia. The murmurs grew louder, swirling like the winds that swept past them. Friends and neighbors shared worried glances, uncertain of what this reunion might unleash. Mia, please, Jake pleaded, taking a step closer, blocking the gusts that threatened to distance them. If we're going to face this, we need to do it together. You're still part of this, no matter how far you've run. Her eyes held a storm of emotions, fear battling courage, longing grappling with hesitation. It's been 3 years, Jake. 3 years since I left this place. You think it's easy to come back and just uncover everything? She shook her head, frustration etching lines on her forehead. I've built a life, even if it's far from perfect. And what does it matter if you're haunted by the past? Jake shot back, the urgency of their situation igniting his passion. You can't keep running forever. We need you with us. Remember how we always fought against everything that tried to tear us apart? The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. It was a strange kind of unity. Jake could feel the community's breaths mingling with the growing thunder. Suddenly, a lightning bolt lit up the sky, the crack sharp enough to rattle through their bones. Mia's expression shifted. The storm was no longer just a metaphor, it felt real, palpable. She glanced at the sky, the wind whipping her hair around her face, momentarily stealing her resolve. What if we dig too deep, Jake? Some truths can't be erased. Some things can't be forgiven. What if we shatter the little hope we have left? Then we rebuild, he replied, his heart racing with conviction. We'll salvage what matters. Mia, don't you believe in us? In this community? We're still here. Let us not just survive, let us rise from it. Together. He reached out then, palm open, hoping she'd see the sincerity in his eyes. The crowd waited, the tension almost suffocating as time seemed to freeze, all eyes fixed on her. Mia, someone whispered from the back. It's not just about us. Another voice interjected, stronger this time. We need to know what's buried in the past if we're ever going to move forward. The storm raged, but Jake felt a flicker of hope within him. Mia took a deep breath, searching the faces around her, and he could see the weight of the world in her thoughts. She was standing at a crossroads, not just between two choices but between two lives. Finally, she moved closer, her hand brushing against Jake's outstretched palm, just a whisper of connection. If we do this, if we find the truth, we have to do it my way. I won't just charge into the storm without a plan. Yes. Jake exclaimed, relief flooding him. Whatever you need, Mia, I'm in this for you. A bolt of lightning illuminated her contours, showing the flicker of a smile that danced upon her lips. Suddenly, the storm didn't seem so daunting. Perhaps they could face it together. But the skies roared again. The thunder rolled, and rain began to pour, drenching them. Gasps erupted from the crowd, some stepping back, while others stood firm, rooting for Jake and Mia's fragile alliance. We have to go. Mia shouted above the noise. Let us find shelter and start planning. We can talk more once the storm passes. Jake nodded, a sense of urgency propelling him forward. They turned together, leading the crowd into the nearby community center, sheltering from the thundering skies. But as they moved, Jake couldn't shake a feeling deep in his chest, the undeniable sense that this storm was just a precursor to the real turmoil they were yet to uncover. As they huddled inside, held together by a purpose now reignited, the room crackled with energy. Jake couldn't help but wonder, what awaited them when the storm finally quieted? And what other truths lay hidden in the shadows, waiting to emerge? The community center felt like a refuge, though the storm's fury still echoed outside. Rain pounded against the windows, creating a rhythm that matched the anxious beating of Jake's heart. Inside, the air was thick with uncertainty, a vast sea of emotion unfurling around them. Mia surveyed the room, taking in familiar faces, her former teachers, childhood friends, and neighbors who had shared her laughter and pain. Their eyes reflected concern, but also hope. We're really doing this, aren't we? She said quietly to Jake, an undercurrent of disbelief in her voice. Yeah, we are, he responded, his hand still lingering near hers, a lifeline in the chaos. We need to figure out where to start. Every great story has a beginning, and maybe ours starts with the truths we've been avoiding. As the crowd settled into chairs, Jake felt a surge of responsibility. The weight of their past and the promise of their future rested heavily on him and Mia. He cleared his throat, looking around. Okay, everyone. We have a storm to weather, and not just the one outside. We need to talk about what we've all been through, why Mia left, and what we can do together to face it. Murmurs rippled through the room. Mia shifted, squaring her shoulders. Maybe I should start, she said, her voice trembling slightly. It's time for me to unearth my truth. Jake squeezed her hand, silently urging her on. 3 years ago, she began, her gaze locking onto the faces before her, I made a choice that I believed would save me. I thought leaving would erase the memories, the pain. But I see now that running doesn't solve anything. I can't hide from what happened here. There was a raw honesty in her eyes that gripped Jake. He knew this moment was poignant, a turning of tides. I lost someone I loved. Her voice cracked. And in my heart, I believed if I walked away, I wouldn't feel the ache of that loss. But I still do. Every day. That night changed everything. The room fell silent, every soul holding on to her words like they were pearls of wisdom dropped from the sky. What happened? A voice finally reached out, cutting through the shared silence. Mia exhaled deeply, preparing to lay bare what had been festering for so long. It was an accident. There was a fight at the party, and someone I loved got hurt. I ran. I thought if I stayed, I'd only make things worse. But leaving broke something inside me. Pain flickered in her eyes, and she glanced at Jake, who nodded at her, encouraging her to continue. But I realize now that the more we hide from what happened, the more it has hold of us, Mia continued. We need to face it not only for ourselves but for everyone who has been affected. We owe it to those we lost and to ourselves. The crowd shifted, absorbing her words, the tension palpable. I know it won't be easy, she added, her voice steadier now, but if we're going to heal, we have to face our past together. We can no longer let it control us. It's time to reclaim our story. A wave of murmurs of agreement swept through the room, igniting a collective courage that stirred in the air. And what about Jake? Someone asked. What's his role in all this? Jake felt the weight of their gaze shift toward him, an intensity that felt both daunting and emboldening. I'm here to stand with Mia, as we uncover the truth, whatever it may be. If this community is strong enough to weather a storm like this one, we're strong enough to face our past. Suddenly, a silence dangled between them, heavy with possibilities. They were united now, not just by their struggles but by an unwavering resolve to forge ahead. But as they exchanged glances of determination, the wind howled again. Jake's heart began to race anew. This was the calm before a deeper storm, and he knew whatever truths they unearthed, they would need each other. What obstacles lurked in the shadows, ready to challenge their fragile bond? Mia's expression grew resolute, but Jake could see a flicker of uncertainty. Are you sure? She asked softly, and as he met her gaze, he realized there was something more they needed to uncover. The question loomed between them like a shadow: what heavy truth would they discover next, and would it strengthen or shatter everything they fought to rebuild? The storm raged outside, pounding rain against the windows of the community center, but inside, a different kind of tempest was gathering. Jake felt the heat in the room, a vivid mix of fear, hope, and unease swirling, swirling. As everyone watched him and Mia, Jake sensed the gravity of the moment pressing down on him. The wind howled, and thunder boomed, but this time, he felt a bizarre calm. They were not just waiting out a storm but preparing to weather the emotional upheaval of truths long concealed. Jake, Mia said, and her voice sliced through the chaos inside him, you have to understand that unearthing the past means risks. It's not just about the pain, it's about facing what we've buried. Are you ready for that? He looked at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes, the tremors of fear that echoed his own. I am, he assured her, feeling a sense of mission coursing through him. If we don't tackle this, then we'll only let our history define the future. We have to step into this together. Mia, Jake together, the murmurs rumbled through the crowd. They were hungry for something real, something that could knit the frayed seams of their community. He could see the resolve dawning in people's faces, neighbors he had grown up with, friends he had never expected to share such an intense moment with. Old Mr. Thompson had once told him that real strength came from vulnerability, and it felt like that truth was coming to life in real time. A voice piped up from the back, one of Jake's old classmates. I never thought I'd say this, but I want to know too. Let's dig deep, but we need to brace ourselves. Once the lid is off, you can't put it back on. Jake nodded. We need strength to embrace our pain while also recognizing our growth. Maybe this is a chance for healing, not just for us, but for everyone who has felt trapped in these shadows. Mia squeezed his hand, a flicker of trust igniting in her eyes. I've learned that uncovering the truth is about liberating ourselves. We can't let the guilt or anger linger any longer. Let us start with my story, then explore the ins and outs of what really happened 3 years ago. With a deep breath, she began recounting the night of the party, her voice steadying with each word. It was a regular evening. Friends were joking, dancing, laughter filled the air, unexpected fights broke out, just kids being reckless. But one moment changed everything. Dan, he was my closest friend, he got into it with someone. They fell, and something terrible happened. An accident turned into chaos, and in that confusion, I bolted instead of staying to help. I didn't look back. Jake could see the heaviness on Mia's shoulders, as if she carried not only her own past but the collective guilt of their shared community. The winds howled outside, and members of the crowd absorbed the weight of her story, eyes glistening with understanding. "It's been haunting me every day since," she continued, voice cracking slightly. "The guilt of leaving him behind, the fear of facing what I allowed to happen. So, I shut it all away. Burying pain seemed easier." A chorus of voices emerged from the crowd, some whispered admittance of similar guilt, while others expressed sympathy. "We all have their stories," one voice said. "Times when we chose silence over truth." Jake felt the space between him and Mia growing smaller, a sense of unity taking shape. "Thank you, Mia, for sharing. But this is only the beginning. We owe it not just to ourselves, but to Dan, to everyone affected by that night. There's so much we need to understand about the relationships that have weathered these storms, about how we can mend the breaks." "That's true, but what should we do to honor those we've lost?" someone else inquired. "What can we change?" "Let us start by deciding who'll take the lead next," Jake suggested, his heart racing at the prospect of their shared journey. "We'll uncover this together. Each person can tell their piece. We confront it head-on." Applause erupted, followed by a wave of voices eager to share their tales. Each one wove deeper connection. Among friends and neighbors long divided by silence and miscommunication. "I'll go next," Ethan's voice said, an unexpected declaration full of rawness and intent. The crowd quieted, disbelief washing over some faces, but curiosity held sway. "I want to understand too. I've felt bitterness toward Mia for leaving, toward Jake for trying to get everyone to unite when I was still reeling. But maybe this is a chance for clarity." The power to confront the shadows grew, wrapping hearts in an embrace of vulnerability. There was a chance for transformation in the air, but it came with a cost, looming heavy in the atmosphere. As if on cue, the storm outside intensified, torrents streaming down the windows, but within the community center, even in the chaos, there was an undeniable sense of hope blossoming amidst the turmoil. "We can't let fear dictate our lives anymore," Jake asserted, gripping Mia's hand tighter. "We have to believe in the healing that honesty offers." And as everyone began to share, layer after layer of stories unfolded, revealing past wounds and hidden grief. With each revelation, the room felt lighter, even as the storm ultimately begged for their attention. Once bitter shadows began to dissipate, warmth filled the gaps left by their secrets. This was no longer about blame or resentment. It was about healing, redemption, and finding familial bonds that had sunk beneath the surface. When silence descended after a particularly powerful testimony, Jake spoke again. "I know the storm outside mirrors what has flooded our lives. But we can weather this because we are the light that cuts through the dark." As if in response, the rain began to ease, sunlight breaking through the furious clouds. The light pooled in their shared space, illuminating the truth behind the shadows and painting the recent memories with vibrant hues of understanding. Just then, a flicker of realization washed over Jake. He turned to Mia, who wore a glimmering smile, all traces of doubt replaced by fierce determination. "We can rise together. My past gained meaning in your truth. We are ready for whatever comes next." With his heart racing, he spoke again, "Let us promise to keep the doors open. To keep confronting, reaching out, and uncovering what brings us together. Together, united, we can face whatever storms may come." Cheers erupted, surging through the community center, igniting their hearts as the sun shined through the remaining clouds, leaving them all gathered around a reframed sense of belonging. Together, they would shine light where before there had only been darkness. Moments like these were not simply up for grabs, they were a call to action, a reminder that courage lies at the heart of transformation. And as the newfound bonds began to materialize, Jake knew this was just the beginning of a journey that would change their lives forever. As the first rays of sunlight broke through, illuminating Jake's resolute expression, one thing was abundantly clear: the fight against the shadows was far from over, but they were ready. They were prepared to discover the endless possibilities that lay ahead. This is the moment to stand tall. So, don't wait not even one more second. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Hit that like button to feed the algorithm, because it truly helps me grow. And comment below, what did you think about this emotional journey? What does healing mean to you? Also, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Thank you for allowing this community to grow. Together, we can face any storm that comes our way.